Having a wonderful day. Welcome to this very special edition of Tuesday Talks with Jazz. My name is Jasmine, aka Jasmine Louisa, and I am a proud member of Mama's Cocktail Hour. Thank you for coming on here because every Tuesday, or today Sunday, we come on here and I get to share with you guys my story or stories about things past, present, and maybe even going on in the future. So today I am super excited because last week I was able to jump on a live with Miss Keyanna Blast, who is the host of the Dark Sugar podcast. And she allowed me the honor to go onto her platform and talk about being a light-skinned Latina who classifies as Afro-Latina or identifies. And I just want to say that I came across Keyanna's stuff as I was doing my little Instagram research, trying to find, like-minded women who are kind of on this self-love journey. And I was just blown away by her page. And let me tell you why. Self-care seems to be the new buzzword. Everything is self-care, self-love. And a lot of it, unfortunately, centers around kind of like taking a bubble bath, eating what you want, getting some time for yourself. And while all those external things are really important, self-love and self-care for me really is kind of like going internal and doing the work inside. Trying to really understand who you are, who you not. Kind of unpacking the things that happened to you in the past. Kind of figuring out how it's affected you in the future and the decisions that you make. And led you to the point in your life that you're in. And that is something that unfortunately our parents or our moms before us really didn't do. It wasn't so much of a thing as it is now. So Keyanna's stuff is super dope because she, just like us here at Mama's Cocktail Hour, is living out her self-love journey in real time. Everything that she posts, everything that she talks about in her podcast are things that she's literally going through, learning through from, and struggling with as we go. And I always say that it's super important that we talk about these really uncomfortable topics because you never know who you might be helping out there in the Instagram world. So with all of that said, guys, I am going to bring on Miss Keyanna Blast, the host of the Dark Sugar podcast. Boo, where you at? Where you at? Where'd she go? Who? What? That's you. I was talking about you.
Boom, that intro. What a good intro. I'm like, is she talking about meet my imposter syndrome? I'm like,
no, I'm talking about you. Let me tell you, because we never spoke about that. I came across your stuff and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, because you were just so raw and so honest. And like, I can hear the wheels turning as you're speaking the stuff that you're saying. And I thought that was so dope. But before we even get into it, guys, because me and Keyanna have kind of like this bond thing going on and we could get lost in our own conversation.
okay.
So before we get started on this topic, right, can you just tell us a little bit about you and how did you come up with the whole concept for your podcast?
Yeah, totally. Well, what an intro. Thank you. Oh my God. But the podcast essentially started with me and my homegirl, who I'm still really, really close with. And the basic idea is, we have all these conversations in our car and, like while we're chilling and whatever. And these are really deep conversations that, like you said, that are happening in real time. Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're sociology professors or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like these are me and my friends. And so I was like, you know what? I think there are other Black and brown people having these conversations, maybe thinking that it's just them, or like, who else can I share these thoughts with? So I was like, you know what? I just want a space and a platform for myself. But then over time, I've been able to just connect with so many people that are like, wait, and people that are like, hold on, girl, let me tell you more. And so it's just really been turning into like, I don't know, just like this really, just like a space for us.
A safe space.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because it's like you open Pandora's box, but in a good way.
Yeah, I'm okay. That's a good way to say it. My mom's just like, you just rip off the Band-Aid. That's what my mom says I do. But yeah, yeah,
No, I always want to shout out women who really put themselves out there. Being from Black and Brown communities, vulnerability is really not looked upon as a strength. It's looked upon as a weakness. And so it's up to us
yeah,
to kind of break that out of the narrative and just show that, listen, we need
totally.
to connect. Yeah, we need to share these stories because that's how we connect. We share our
Right,
experiences.
right.
All right. Now we're gonna talk about what you said you were about to flex on.
I
So
know I
guys,
said that. I'm like, what if people are disappointed?
so Keyanna is pretty much like a subject matter expert when it comes to this.
No, don't hate me.
I'm gonna ask you to explain
Okay.
for those out listening to us, what is narcissism? What is narcissism? Narcissism. Blech.
I know it's such a girl. Trying to spell it, I've got it down now, but like the C's and the S's. Okay. So I describe narcissism in conversation as a grandiose sense of self to replace a true sense of self. So there's been debates on whether it's a mental illness or not. People are saying it's not, and that it's more so a pathology that can be coexisted with mental illnesses. Um, I would say the background for it, because this is where I was really interested. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing this person and these weird things that they do, and they get in these toxic relationships, but why? Like, why are narcissists, like, why do they do these funny things? So how narcissism develops, unfortunately, the commonality is usually narcissists have dealt with childhood trauma themselves, either from a narcissistic parent, or they've been in a situation where their sense of self has not been validated by a caregiver. So that initial 4 to 5 years where you're growing up and you get that established sense of self, who you are as a person, an individual, um, and how your desires, wants, and needs can be met in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So for a narcissist, that's distorted. It's whack. It's off. Sometimes it's just not even there.
So contrary to belief, a narcissist is not someone who has inflated sense of self.
Right. And the reason why it seems like, oh, that person is so confident they're a narcissist, skirt. Narcissists are not confident. They usually have very low to no self-esteem. They're usually super, super insecure. And what you're seeing is them externally trying to fill this trauma hole that it's not going to work. So what you're seeing is it not working. And the way that they're trying to get what they want and get that sense of worthiness is by using people, constantly trying to feel special, be obligated, be not obligated, what's the word? Entitled, highly entitled people. It can be highly manipulative. They treat people like objects. The layman's term is someone that's fake. Oh, she's so fake. Oh, yeah, she's probably a narcissist. She probably has like serious issues. Fake, aka she acts one way, they act one way in person, and at home they're a completely different person.
We're gonna get into that.
Right. So in simple terms, narcissism is an inflated sense of self to cover up for the fact that I have no sense of self.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
That alone says a lot because, again, a lot of us who may not have a lot of experience with narcissism, the first thing we think of is,
yeah, they think she thinks she's all that. It's like you're just seeing the projection. They don't truly think that. You're seeing what they want you to think. So yes, they want you to think that they're put together and that they're all that. That's what they want. But what you're seeing, what you're feeling is that it's not true. That's why it's fake.
I bet you right now, a bunch of you that are listening right now, we haven't even started and you already thinking about somebody in your head.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a very common trauma wound, not having, and you can even, and depending on your environment and genetics and different things, you can go one way. Either you go to narcissism, or sometimes you go to the codependent servant type of, and there is codependent personality disorder, but you know, there's like different ways. But the narcissist, we've all
gone through it. So you basically can, and this is not everyone, but you basically can either, if you're raised or have a really strong relationship with a narcissist who is your caretaker, can either be raised to become a caretaker, a narcissist, or you may become a codependent, and then you may be the one who ends up getting in a relationship with a narcissist because to you that is familiar, and you become the people pleaser, right? You become the one who's basically the sacrificial lamb and constantly feeding the narcissist. We need a better word for that, because my Puerto Rican accent.
Sometimes I say narc, but that means also another thing. But I've seen people just say narc.
Well, the narc. You end up feeding that monster per se. You become that person. All right. So for you, right? What was your first experience being in a relationship with? And it doesn't have to be romantic. You would say now, looking back, that you are more aware of being with someone who you can say had narcissistic traits.
Yeah, my first encounter was definitely with my mom, who doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder because it is on a spectrum. But
tell them the difference, Keyanna, that you can have narcissistic traits but not have narcissistic personality disorder.
So narcissism, like a lot of things that we're learning, like autism, is on a spectrum. And I believe the spectrum is like this kind of like non-toxic narcissism that we kind of all do. Like no one's perfect, so it's gonna come. And then there's some narcissistic traits where you're like, oh, this person's like kind of fake, like da, 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 da. And then there's this where it literally impacts every aspect of their life, with every person, their job, their romantic relationships, everything. And they probably need serious help, but they're not going to go. And that would be narcissistic personality disorder, which is there's very new research on it. So it's not diagnosed often, but I've seen it often. Yeah. Wait, what was it? What was the initial question? Sorry, I got lost.
So your mom was your first experience?
Oh, yes, my mom was my first experience, and she did display narcissistic traits. She had a terrible childhood, and I could kind of see, and what it was, she did a little bit of narcissistic amnesia, which I'm sure you've dealt with, where you come to them, you're like, hey, you yelled at me the other day, kind of bothered me. What do you mean? No, I didn't. I didn't do. They won't even say what. Fuck. Not even what do you mean? No, I didn't.
Yes, I'm sorry if it came across that way.
No, just no.
It never happened.
No, I did not. And so it was a lot of that when we were going through. We had a really tough relationship when I was a teenager, and so it was a lot of that. Hey, mom, you yelled at me. No, I didn't. What? Fuck. And so that's narcissistic amnesia. They're literally that's like the biggest gaslighting. Like it throws you for a whoa. Yes, I did. Like you can't even think. You're like, well, did you do it? Well, you're saying you didn't, but I'm kind of. So it was a lot of that. And just in arguments, I could see her ego coming out, and I can't talk to your ego. So we can't have a conversation. So it never got to a point where I can't have a relationship with her, but it was definitely present when we were having our hardest time. And I do have to say, she does not do it as much, but she has also done 6 months of dialectical behavioral therapy.
And what is that?
DBT, it's a treatment program similar to cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
It's people with like borderline personality disorder, narcissism, and they're ranging in treatments. But that is the treatment. They need to go to treatment. Like my mom got better, not because she was like one day like, I'm just going to stop being a narcissist. Like she had to go get help.
Well, question, you say that she got better because she went to treatment, but could it also be because you are now aware of what may have been going on with her?
No.
And that No.
Oh, well, no, because even though I realized it, she also did stop. Like, she doesn't do it
Okay.
really. And sometimes she does, but she's quick to catch it. But no, but literally when she came back, see, this is the thing I want to point out. When she came back from dialectical behavioral therapy, Jasmine, she was like, Keyanna, I learned that I'm supposed to listen to people when they talk to me and consider their feelings. And I'm looking at her like, yeah, Mom, that's great. I'm glad you're learning that. And I'm like, oh my God. So the thing is, they cannot, it's literally, they cannot think any other way until they're shown another way and learn another way to think. Like, my mom literally did not know. And every day she'd come home like, wow, so I'm not supposed to impose my ways of thinking on other people. People are allowed to have their own thoughts. And I'm just like, I didn't know this. And I'm like, well, this makes sense because you acted like you didn't know that. That was our issue. So that was the really big thing. She had to learn. They're missing a chip. Girl, yeah. I can't tell you that I've described a narcissist. And I'm like, something's missing. I've literally described a narcissist to their family as, yeah, a wire's missing. A wire is literally missing.
It's like you sit there and you're just like, I just don't understand what happened. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, when you have an encounter with a narcissist and like you sit there and you replay it, like, you will drive yourself mad because you'll be like, I don't understand what happened. I don't understand where it went wrong, because they contrive this narrative, and their reactions sometimes to things are just blown out of proportion. And you cannot have a conversation, because if you try to disagree or assert yourself, or like, if they say the sky is green, the sky is green.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. So I have a question to you. But yeah, what happens then usually with the person, like, let's say in a relationship with a mom and a daughter, and the mom is a narcissist?
So unfortunately, the mom usually has deep childhood trauma wounds. Mm-hmm. Usually she sees her daughter as an extension of herself. She sees anybody taking time. She'll see anybody as a threat associated with the daughter. So like a boyfriend, friends, she'll be very paranoid around them. Mm-hmm. It's the most heart-wrenching of relationships, because sometimes they're I don't want to say there's no hope, but it's like they need to go to therapy. And then the hardest part is you have to detach your healing from your mom's. You think, once my mom's better, I'll be better. Once she's fine, I'll be fine. Or once I'm fine, why aren't you fine? And it's like, no, your mom's healing is separate from yours. You have to keep going. Life keeps going. And it's kind of that sacrifice. Like, you're doing for her what you want her to do for you. Why won't you put me first? I'm putting you first.
You said something in your pod. You did the episode of with the narcissism, and you said that meeting the needs, like, you never got to know who you were because you were too busy trying to fill the narrative of who your mom wanted you to be, that you pretty much just didn't have time to be or even know who you were, right? And I think a lot of women who find themselves in a relationship where their mom is a narcissist, you find yourself in that kind of situation. You're so concerned about being who they want you to be, pleasing them, keeping them happy, not stirring the pot, that you kind of lose who you are, and you literally feel about yourself based off how they come at you, pretty much. So if it's a good day and they loving you, you loving yourself. It is great. You're a star daughter. But if they give you a look, or they don't compliment you, or they don't acknowledge, because I think acknowledging is a really big thing. Let me tell you something. Like, being in a relationship with someone who does not realize that they are a narcissistic parent, meaning my parent, it is very difficult because I'm constantly searching for validation. And just with one look, I could return back to that little 10-year-old girl.
Yes, that part. That part.
And when you're for me, I'm damn near 40 with 2 kids and a husband. That is a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. And that's why it's important we talk about this, because you have a bunch of adult women walking around not knowing who they are. Afraid to even know who they are, because you don't want to go against the grain or the standard that was set for you.
Totally. I remember, like, and I didn't know this and until it like all came together, and I talked to you a little bit about it, and I was like able to share it with my mom, which was kind of scary, but she was receptive. But I'm like super empathic. You can say psychic or whatever you want. But I recently, the more I meditate, memories come to me, like childhood. And so I was able to have flashes of me crying when I was in LA and my mom and I were living in this condo. And I was in my room, I'm crying. And I'm by myself, my mom never comes. And the hardest part about trauma is that we can never go back and redo that. But all my life I've been trying to. I'm trying to do everything I can so you can pick me up. Oh. And I told my mom that. I said, I can't tell you how bad I wanted you to pick me. She's like, well, I do support you. I do. And I said, no, Mom, I wanted you to pick me up. And everything was going to be okay if you picked me up. And I had to like sit with that and realize how deep that was for me and how deep my cord is with my mom. And yeah, the truth is, if a parent doesn't have their sense of self, they can't acknowledge yours. They can't. They literally cannot. And so the big thing with narcissism is to realize they don't have the capacity. So you're sitting there trying to explain on the phone, breaking it down for them. They might seem like they get it. You hang up. Same shit. Yeah, no, yeah, and I want to equate this to, and I'm not just trying to be light with this. I'm trying to equate it. I want to equate it to cancer. If someone came to your house, I have cancer. What could you do for them? What would you tell them to do? Probably go to the doctor.
Go to the doctor. Make sure they do what they need to do.
Same with the narcissist. You can't do anything. There's nothing you can do. And when I had to realize that and realize how much time I fucking wasted, no offense, sorry, but like because they need to go to a doctor. Like I had to bang that in my head. Like, Keyanna, your love will not save them. Your magical love is not going to cure them. Like,
if you're the perfect version of what they want you to be, it's not going to change them. It's hard to accept that. But first of all, they even have to first acknowledge there's a problem, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So they already have a warped sense of self. They have no self-awareness. So they don't even think that they are the problem, because perception is reality. And so they don't have a problem. You are the problem. Right. So it took me a while to realize too that, I already have my own set of issues that I'm trying to deal with over here. And these issues that you have are triggering my issues to the fullest extent. So I'm not ever going to get better if I don't separate myself.
Right.
My issues are my issues, but your issues are triggering my issues. And so it gets to a point where you have to make a decision. And it's very hard when you're very close to that person. Because you love that person, and you still want to be connected to that person.
Exactly, yeah.
And I know for me, being taught that family over everything, that no matter what, all you have is family. No matter what happens, your family is always going to be there for you. But what happens if your family is toxic? And not necessarily that you guys don't love each other, not necessarily that, you know, it was always bad, but what if the way you guys are in relationship is just toxic? The way you are, the expectations you have with one another, the way you treat each other. Mm-hmm. That thing you said about you wanted your mom to just come and just pick you up, girl, I felt that to my soul, because I now, like I tell everybody, I have anxiety, I have obsessive compulsive disorder. But when I was younger, I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. So everything I felt to the 10th degree with no understanding of what's going on. And at that point, my mom didn't have the capacity to understand that her child was going through something to that level. And it was more just build the bridge and get over it. Stop crying. Yep. Mind over matter. You're being weak. You got to be strong. And I'm sure in her mind, it was trying to teach me how to be strong, but it felt and left me alone. It left me feeling broken. It let me feel like, yo, there's something wrong with me. My own mom is telling me that the way I'm handling and is wrong, right? But all I wanted to do was just her hug me. To her to listen to my feelings, to validate my feelings and say, I understand you feel this way. Talk me through my feelings. And I never got that. And that's why with my daughter now, she's 8, I'm trying very hard to be that for her, because she has ADHD, she has impulse control issues, and I don't want her to feel broken. I don't want her to feel like there's something wrong with her. I want to give her what I didn't have, because I'm never going to get it from my mom. And not because she doesn't love me, because let me tell you, my mother had me at 15 and she did everything she needed to do to make sure we okay. And we wouldn't be who we are if it wasn't for her. But I got hurt a lot in the process. A lot.
That's always hard. Yeah, mother-daughter narcissist. It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to let them go. And I've been through that moment with my mom where I'm like, I gotta let you go and I have to be okay. Because it's like we get so wrapped up sometimes in these relationships and connections, which are important. But you initially wake up and go to bed by yourself every day in your space, in your own body. No one else is closing your eyes or opening them. So it's like, I gotta be okay without your validation. I have to be okay whether you pick me up or not. And that's always so hard.
That is hard, because you've been searching for that pretty much your whole life. And then it's very confusing when you've been taught your whole life that you do need the validation of this person. You do need it, because a narcissist will have you believe that is your role, that is your job, that is what you're supposed to do, right? Because nobody knows you better than them. Oh, I know my daughter. I know you're my daughter, so I know what you're capable of. Oh, that's not how you really feel, because you're my daughter, and I know how you feel. It's almost as if you can't. It creates like confusion within yourself, where you can't.
Boo boo.
Yes, there you go. Fancy term. You're like can't trust yourself, because even as an older woman, like even my husband be like, you second guess yourself all the time.
Yep, that's why. Literally, if you're being gaslit every 2 seconds, why would you? I can't tell you how many times. And see, my mom was the base for every other worst relationship I had after that. Because my worst narcissistic relationship was with a really close friend. And that person kept triggering me to my mom, which is why I also stayed. Because I was trying to prove myself that I could do it. Oh, I can stay. I could take, because there would be some times where they'd say something and I'd be like, oh, that was weird, but I'm not going to let that bother me. But my self-esteem went,
because you had to show that you were strong.
Right. And I'm thinking like, oh, this isn't bothering me. Like your little comments, whatever. You're kind of shady sometimes, whatever. But, and I'm used. And the funny thing was, because people, they love, and then after, when you come out of the toxic relationship, they love to do the, oh, I don't know how you could have done that. And it's just like, well, let me tell you. One, I was trying to, a lot of times when you're the codependent in the narcissist relationship, you're trying to prove, because everyone else's happiness is your happiness, right? So then the narcissist, their happiness becomes your ultimate job. But you'll never make them happy, so you're the ultimate failure.
Oh,
but
yes.
They kind of believe in you and kind of love you. You want to prove to them that you can do it, so you try again and again and again and again. And it becomes this like cycle until you start waking up and start kind of looking around and being like, and it was like this beautiful, perfect thing, because it was a really close friend, like someone that, oh, we're gonna be friends forever type thing. But it was like, and when we met each other where we were, right?
Okay.
I had no self-esteem, not low self-esteem, no self-esteem. So
what's the difference? What's the difference?
I mean, you can have, okay, so to me the difference is, a lot of people who have experienced complex trauma where you spend years of your life not focusing on yourself or having to disassociate because of what's around you, usually you come out of that having like no sense of identity. Like me personally, I remember telling my therapist, yeah, I'm not sure I know what my favorite color is or what kind of music I like. Like when people ask me what movies I like can't answer. Like I don't know these basic things about myself. Like what the fuck? And she was like, you need to spend time with yourself. You spent years focusing on other people. So in order to be in a narcissistic relationship, you have to abandon yourself. And if I'm doing that with my mom for 10 years and then this friend for 10 years, after 20 years, my self-esteem ain't there. It can't be there. How am I supposed to flourish with a narcissist? How are you supposed to be successful and be the best that you can be with a narcissist? How? So it's like when people are looking like, oh, I don't know how you did that. It's like, well, I had no self-esteem. That's how I did it. You have a self-esteem and you're looking at the situation like, what? Yeah, I had no self-esteem. So none of that looked bad to me. That was, none of it was a red flag to me. It was a flag, not red. It wasn't a red one. Like
it was a flag because deep down inside it made you uncomfortable. Deep down inside you knew something was off.
And then that's the thing. I knew something was off, but my whole life living with my mom, I had to abandon that feeling. Do you know how many times I didn't want to do something, say something, go somewhere or whatever, and my mom was like, do it anyway? Even if I really like, even if my gut was saying no, but because I'm a little kid, I don't have any autonomy over my body, so I gotta do it anyway. So I'm used to ignoring that gut. Oh yeah, girl, it was like, yeah, something. And I was like, I'm so used to ignoring that. A lot of Black and brown people are used to ignoring that. We have to get through the day. We have constant triggers. We have to ignore to live. So I was used to ignoring these signs. But honestly, as I developed my sense of self and started doing the smallest little things to gain more confidence, the narcissist was like, ah! And then by the time I was here, I didn't have the energy. But it's like when I met them, I had no self-esteem, so we could be together. It was the perfect boom. Like, I have no self-esteem, neither do you. I want to give everything, you want to take everything. Perfect. It was perfect. Said. So, it was like a lot of reflection, but they definitely met me where I was. Like, it's not like, and that's just me like reflecting on my own accountability, but it's not like I was in a really good place. I was in a very bad place. Yes, narcissistic fog, codependency fog. I was in such a bad place. When I came out, I was like, who am I? And I remember telling my ex this. I was explaining to him, like, my self-esteem was like dangerously low, like not the normal level of low. It was just lower than that. And I remember explaining to him, yeah, I don't think I actually have a self-esteem.
How did he react to that?
He was very like, he was sad, but it made sense because of how I was acting and behaving, and because of how depressed I was and how insecure I was. And I was still when I was in my relationship with him, I was still with the friend. I was still friends with that friend. So, you know, I don't think he understood completely, but the words I was saying, he was like, whatever you're saying must be true, because what you're going through, like, doesn't really match. Like, it's not like, oh, my hair's off or something. It'd be like just true sense of dread regarding myself and my identity. Just like, and then a lot of complex trauma survivors describe it as just, and you probably felt it, you just feel ugly, you feel gross, you feel nasty. And it's beyond like beauty and makeup. You feel ugly, your whole body.
Like you feel like there's something wrong with you. You feel like broken, and no matter people tell you, oh, you're beautiful, or oh, you're this, but you can't see it. You can't see it at all.
To me, that's no self-esteem. I had no self-esteem. Like, there's nothing he could have said. There's nothing anyone could have done to make me feel better. Nothing. I had to do the work myself.
And that's a very scary thing, right? Because again, all you know is what you know. And you're about to embark on this really scary adventure of figuring yourself out, self-love. Mm-hmm. And then I know for myself, the more confidence I got, the more pushback I got, the more confusion was trying to be brought into my new self-worth bubble, because all of a sudden who I was becoming was a problem. So it's like, oh, you have an attitude, or oh, you think you're better, or you know, like all of a sudden all these negative things, and I'm just like, no, I'm just trying to stand up for myself. I want to say no. I don't want to overextend myself all the damn time running ragged. I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to go to your house again for the 50th millionth time to do absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, just little things like that. But they were like considered these big like atrocities. And I was getting anxiety just to say no to certain little things. It was like a big deal. Like, I would rather make myself miserable just doing whatever it is that was being asked for me to do, okay, and complain to my husband about it than just being like, no.
And that's the part people don't understand. They're like, why don't you just say no? Why don't you just, it's because like, I don't have the energy for what happens. It's like they don't know. And I experienced that growing up. And growing up, it was so hard. And when there's different dynamics and with emotional abuse, it's just hard for people to understand. But people would be like, well, why don't you just tell your mom this? Or why don't you just, oh my God. No, I remember what it was. It would be asking my mom twice. And I'm sure a lot of Black and brown kids can relate to this, but on my mom, I swear to God, it was another level. If I asked her a question twice, oh my God, like, people would not get it. Like, and people would be like, oh, I already asked my mom. Well, ask her again. No, I can't ask her again. Well, why don't you? No, you don't understand. I'd rather just not go. Fuck what you're doing. Bye. I'll see you later. I'll miss out. It's fine. Then ask my mom again. Even if she might say, yeah, I just didn't want to. I was like, no, thank you. And people don't understand that. And I've seen it, and it's very hard to blame. It's just so, I just hate when people blame the victim. Because with my friend in particular, the day, and what you said, yes, when you stand up for yourself, when you gain your confidence, when you step into your light, they are pissed because now you won't do what they want. Yep. Your whole point was to just shut up, hopefully, and to just do what they're saying. And I remember the day I stood up to the person, my friends, we were supposed to spend the day together, like best friend time day together. And when I confronted them, they took me home in the middle of our day And they were screaming and yelling the entire time, taking me home. They went into a full narcissistic rage.
Ooh, talk about that rage. Wait. Talk about that rage.
The narcissistic rage, and I just hate that I've seen it. And I'm in the car with this person, and they're driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and I couldn't, like, when I think back, I'm like, get out the car. And it would have been dramatic as fuck, but I wish I could have gotten out the car. Like, it was very, like, so basically what happened was, I was like, hey, you know all these grievances that you've been doing and getting away with? I caught on. Let's talk about it. And she was trying to talk about it, but see, the thing with the narcissist, they're almost, and this is kind of gross, but imagine a person with no skin, just meat. Their trauma wounds are so surface that me just saying kindly, hey, let's talk about your emotional dumping that you do. Boom, I'm touching it. Boom, I literally a trauma wound. Like a literal, I literally hit a trauma wound. They cannot handle it, because this is the thing. When you confront a narcissist, I would advise you not to do it, actually. And if it is done, it needs to be done in a clinical setting. Because when you're confronting a narcissist, especially with someone with narcissistic personality disorder, they're very depression prone to suicide. When you have been doing what you have been doing for years, and your self-esteem is low, and you've been getting away with it and faking it, how shitty do you think it is to sit down within all your bullshit, look at all the people that you fucked over, and be like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The reason why they don't do that is because, like, it's a suicide trigger. It's narcissism is it's a very spiritual thing. You're literally seeing an open wound. The reason why they're doing what they're doing, it's to literally survive. That's the only way they know how to connect with people. It's fucked. Like, yes, but that's the only way they know. And guess what? If you're not happy with it, there are 5 other people that have been dealing with it and are just fine with it and have been enabling it for that person's whole life.
Listen, especially if you come from a family where, let's say, if you have a narcissistic parent and there's other children involved, there's usually like this whole setup of like the sacrificial lamb, I like to call it. There's the golden child, like, so there's a lot of enabling going on. And when you look at it, it's really the kids also finding their way to survive the narcissistic parents. So they take on these roles, and sometimes, unfortunately, they turn on each other. So it's a whole type, it's a whole cycle. And I agree, because I've seen it myself. I've seen someone who just went into a full-on rage, and it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical.
They're saying all crazy shit, and then they don't remember after. They will not remember after. But they're saying like all this crazy shit, and some of it is them admitting what they're doing.
It's crazy. And then when they tell the story to someone else, they completely omit the part where they went nuts and like flipped on you for no reason. And so they're giving people this sob story. And so they somehow become the victim in this story.
Always. Nothing can be their fault.
Crazy.
Nothing can be their fault. And I've had to explain this because my mom has a lot of siblings. And some of them have taken on narcissistic roles because they were treated differently. And so the way I explain it to other family members are like, why doesn't this person see my side? Like, why are they so up their own ass? And I'm like, look, here's the thing. Part of the cognitive dissonance is like 2 worlds happening at the same time. So when that's happening, you can't think. So the narcissist, they're choosing their world. If they're going to switch over to this one, they'll probably have a psychiatric breakdown. Like, think of this life that we're living right now. Your name's Jasmine. My name's Keyanna. You're a mom. Da-da-da-da-da. And what if that was just switched out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Everything flipped upside down. I don't know how well we would take that. So like the meme I sent you where it's like you're asking a flawed person to evaluate their flawed behavior with their flawed perception. Like it's not gonna work. They're literally looking, their input and output is not like ours. They're taking everything in and putting it back completely different. This is the way their mind is set to think. And I think it's really interesting because I've seen it, like they'll do something, I'll point it out, hey, you did this. And then I'll see this look on their face of, oh, I did do that. But then they rewire it to not being their fault again. So then it's literally their brain will rewire it back so that whatever is happening is not their fault. They do not have the mental capacity to understand that. So while you're thinking, why don't they get it? They can't.
Mm.
And that's
because they pull that little thread and forget it. They can't afford. So okay, this brings a good point then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel that you have been in a narcissistic relationship, right? The point that we're talking about this, and it's important to have these conversations, is to realize and understand that, like Keyanna said, you can't fix that by loving that person. You can't fix that by, trying to, fill their every need, do exactly everything that they want you to do. Like, you have no control over that. It's unfortunate. The only thing that you have control over is yourself. And so while it is important to understand that this is happening to the other person, and it's important to be compassionate because, like Keyanna said, this is how they have found the ability to survive this world. This is how they're going through the world. You have to then in turn make a decision, right? Is it worth staying in this relationship? What is it that you've been giving and giving up? What is it doing to you and your sense of self? What is it doing to the important relationships in your life that are aside from the relationship with the narcissistic person? Yeah. Because it can not only take a toll on you, but it takes a toll on those closest to you. If you become a parent, you can be bringing these tendencies on or causing discord in the relationship with your own children. And it's going to keep this cycle going over and over and over. So before we close out, I guess, what do you suggest for someone who is starting to kind of realize, hey, I have my own set of issues, but I really think I'm in relationship with this person who's, showing narcissistic traits, whether it be a parent or a sibling, a coworker, a friend, and it's really triggering me. What would you suggest for them to do?
I would suggest for them to do, honestly, a lot of self-reflection and journaling. Ask yourself, is this worth bringing up to the person? And unfortunately, depending on the degree of narcissism, it's usually not. It's usually something that unfortunately is on you as far as like boundaries go. I encourage heavy boundaries with the narcissist, especially if it's someone that you work with in your family, someone that you may not be able to completely cut out, but definitely see where you can put up more boundaries, spend more time away from them, and also spend more time by yourself if you can. It really helps because when I finally had my ego death, spiritual awakening thing, and I was able to spend time with myself, because before there, but when I was able to spend more time with my own energy and then be able to figure out see that change of me being with the narcissist. Because also my problem was I had spent so much time around other people all the damn time that I didn't even know what being by myself and what my own energy fucking felt like. I didn't even know. So I knew something was wrong, but like didn't know quite what. And the more time I was alone, then I was with that person, I could like really feel the difference. And then also trust your gut. Trust your gut.
That's hard, Keyanna, when you've been taught not to have a mind of your own.
Trust your gut. I know it's so hard. I know it's so hard, but you're right. Like in all the situations that I've been with the narcissist where I'm like, something's up. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Girl, that's your spirit talking to you. That's the universe sending you signals like, hey, yes. Especially, you got to remember, anxiety, chest, intuition, stomach. So put your hand on your stomach and feel that shit out. Because and it's like, the more you build up yourself, I think the biggest thing is more you build up with yourself, spend time with yourself, that's your armor against them.
Yes.
And they love reaction. So the less you give, the better it will be, because they really like it. And if you can like, if you're in a conversation with a narcissist and if you're quiet when they want reaction, half the time they'll fess up really quick. It's weird. They'll do it.
Or they'll really lose their mind and then hang up on you.
Yeah, they cannot handle it. They want that reaction. So the more that you can really just establish your esteem, because a lot of times when we're with the narcissist, we're giving up ourselves. You have to. So once you establish that value within yourself, and you're like, hey, I'm too valuable to give up. Because before I was like, oh, I'm not worth anything, so here.
Yeah.
So just take it, like whatever. But the one after I was able to build up my own self-esteem, I was like, wait. Because see, I grew up thinking that relationships like that were normal. That's how I grew up. I literally had to learn that it wasn't. So, just be very, very kind to yourself. The cognitive dissonance and the codependency fog, just be very, very gentle with yourself, because you can have a lot of shame. So yeah.
And shame keeps you from reaching out. Shame keeps you from wanting to get help. Shame keeps you in the dark. And if you're in the dark, you're not going to be able to come into the light and kind of get the help that you need in any way that might be.
Mm-hmm.
Girl,
it's a journey. It's like, it's such a journey. And I think I'm just so blessed to have these experiences line up with my growth, even with my mom. Because I have to tell people, like, don't look at my mom, like, she's like a really rare case, like, don't look at her. But I'm like very blessed to have that 180 with her, and then also have examples of people that it's just like I had to just let go. And it's hard. We're talking about it, I'm going through it, but this is not easy. The overall benefit is beautiful, but going through it, it's so hard. It is so hard.
It's hard because you're questioning everything about everything. You're questioning everything about everything you've ever known. And what people don't seem to understand is, like you said earlier, like, you don't trust your own instincts. You don't trust yourself, right? So if you've always relied on the narcissist to kind of be like that lighthouse for you, and now you're pissing them off and you're questioning them, but then you don't trust your own instincts, you really feel lost. And then you try to tell other people, and people who are not in your same situation do not understand. Because to them, they're just like, I don't understand what's the problem. You just need to stand up to them. And then you're like, bro, if that was that easy, I wouldn't be dealing with this. There's something that you're conditioned. You're conditioned to be filled with fear. You're conditioned to be constantly in a state of confusion and anxiety and just needing that person to kind of be your lighthouse.
And another thing is, within cognitive dissonance, usually, I mean, it's the balance, it's the going back and forth between the two realities. But usually when you're with the narcissist, you have to give up your own to be in theirs. It's gonna be theirs over yours. So to be in somebody else's reality will fuck you up. Yeah, that's not normal. Like, and I would describe that to my therapist sometimes. I would say, like, being with this person or being in the presence of this person feels like I'm in a house of mirrors. Everything's off. Everything's just like a little off. Nothing. We're always arguing. There's always misunderstandings. I did this, but it would just be, and I'm just reflecting because I was just right. I would be like, why do you act different in person? Do you know that? And she would be like, I do. I'm like, yeah, you act different in front of people. Oh, weird.
Oh, for all you guys who don't know, narcissists are known to act totally different out there in the world. so that when you come back and you try to be like, yo, this person did this and this to me, they are looking at you like you make no sense, because that is not who they see. That is not who they know.
Yeah.
That is not what they're familiar with when it comes to that person. So that's like another way of just keeping this, whatever it is that they got going on.
Right.
And it's hard to get allies because everybody's like, but that's not who I see. I don't see your mother like that. She's so cool. It's so nice to have a mom like that.
Right. And then the hard part is also when you feel like you're also kind of in on it, like you're also responsible for their image. Because what are you going to do when you meet people be like, wait, you want to know how she really is? Like, what do you...
Yeah.
So sometimes you feel like you're in on it too.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to.
You have to.
There were times where with my mom, with my friend, or I was standing up for them. Oh, that's how she is.
I hear that a lot. That's just, you know how she is. That's just how she is. You can't take it personal.
Yeah, that's just how she is. And that's their excuse too. That's just how I am. And then, and the thing is that a lot of pages, and I don't want to shame anybody, but in general, I try not to really criminalize narcissists. I see a lot of pages, narcissists, my ex, and and they'll be like, they were evil and they were a monster and whatever. And these are extreme situations, so I don't know what they did. Crazy.
Yeah.
But on the like lower level, I could really see like, okay, this person is truly struggling on the inside. And, you know, I just really had to let that person, because half the time you're the therapist, you're the doctor, you're whatever. And it's hard to give that person the tools, give that person the mop and the broom and be like, you clean up your mess, not me anymore. You do it. Because half the time the narcissists, they're usually just a big baby. They're used to people picking up their shit, wiping their ass, doing whatever. Oh, he's just 3. He's just 4. That's just what he does. That's just my son.
No.
Just get a little pass. They're used to a little pass.
You know, you just said you don't want to criminalize. I agree, because I know my experience with the person who I feel is a narcissist is not a bad person. I love that person more than one of the people I love the most in this world. What I realized though is that we enable each other with this bad behavior. So it's like you can love this person and they genuinely can be a good person. It just so happens that you and them don't mesh,
right?
And you bring out the worst in each other. And so I'm not going to criminalize my mom, because I think my mom is amazing, but I know that she brings out things in me that I am not okay with, and I bring out things in her. I couldn't do nothing about it when I was a kid. I had no control over that, but I can do something about it now that I'm an adult.